New venture. Yeah. Welcome to An Infinite Deal of Nothing. Our podcast, first episode. Yeah, oddly I don't feel awkward, you know.
Well, we just natter like this all the time,
yeah.
And then we were like, let's just record it and subject other people to these natterings.
Yeah, we normally sit in the cafeteria at uni for like 3 hours.
We thought, as like a good introduction to us and what this venture is,
yes,
we would do a very simple introductory episode just discussing the top 5-ish plus potentially some honourable mentions of not necessarily our favourite books of all time, although definitely some of those are in there, but more the books or the collections that made us.
Yeah, I mean it was supposed to be 5, but Oliver couldn't pick.
No, I couldn't.
No.
We've got a lot of cool stuff planned.
Lots of cool stuff planned. We spent a whole coffee shop day planning.
But now just a fun intro,
easy episode. Lovely. So, do you want to kick it off or do you want me to kick it off?
You kick it off.
I'll kick it off. Okay. So, my first book, actually I find it really easy to pick my books. So, I will go with my first book is you can probably guess what it is. It's Picture of Dorian Gray.
Of course.
Yeah. By Oscar Wilde. Not that he needs any introduction. Yeah, I just think that, just everything about this book is just absolutely phenomenal. You've not read it.
I can't believe I haven't read it yet.
He hasn't read it. If I had to pick a book of all time, it would be, yeah.
Okay.
I know, that's a big statement.
I'm saying that like I'm surprised, but... Like,
well, yeah, because I mention it like once a week. I'm not original in saying that. Like, absolutely not. But I just think that it was the book that got me into reading classics.
Eryca is legit a classicist. She just loves classics, which I think is brilliant.
Thank you.
But over the course of this podcast, somehow I'm going to get you into something weird and modern.
To be fair, I am trying.
Yeah?
I have bought some weird and modern books.
Yeah.
And I'm reading them. I mean, I told you about one yesterday. I think it's a bit weird.
We'll report back on this as well.
Absolutely will. Made me fall in love with classics. Got me into reading classics. I read it far too young. Didn't really understand what was going on, but I knew it was pretty banging. And I also think it made me fall in love with words, which is really silly.
It's not.
But I just think Oscar Wilde had such a way with words. Everything was purposeful and just gorgeous and phenomenal. And I also think his characters are so pretentious.
Yeah.
And I bloody love it.
So is he.
And he
in
deserved...
like an amazing camp,
absolutely.
flamboyant way.
Yeah, and the book itself, everyone should know what it's about, so I'm not even going to talk about it. But the preface, so in the copy that I have, he has like a little foreword, which is lovely. And he says, it is the spectator and not life that art really mirrors. And I think that not only does that sum up the entire book, but I think that with my own writing, that's exactly what it is. I think the thing about my writing is I get so vulnerable when what I'm writing, it scares the hell out of me to share it. So... lovely that Basil Hallward feels the same, because he is my icon. And my favourite quote from the whole book is definitely, "You will always be loved, and you'll always be in love with love." What a lovely quote. Lovely. Stunning.
Wait, haven't you got like the
I do, yeah, I have the uncensored version, which I haven't read yet, so I'll report back on that one.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that.
I got it for my birthday last year from a housemate. Lovely. Shout out to her. So excited, but I was reading it because I recently made Sam, my housemate, watch the film. Not a great adaptation, but Ben Barnes and Colin Firth are in it, so like you know.
There's only one adaptation of it, like one formal adaptation.
I don't know, but it's the one that everyone knows. I mean, he's got Ben Barnes playing Dorian Gray, and he's just a bit sexy, really, isn't he? And Colin Firth plays Harry, which I'm not a fan of Lord Henry, but it is what it is. He's a bit of a, I don't know, he has some fun takes.
Yeah.
But I made Sam watch the movie, and he was not a fan of seeing the picture move. It did freak him out a little bit. But I was reading the book to him, little bits of it last night, because I was like, oh, well, I'm doing this thing, I'm looking for quotes from it. I said, but do you actually realise how gay the book was? He said, what do you mean? So I started reading bits from it. Oh my gosh. Every single time I go back to it, I'm like, wow, this gets gayer.
Yeah.
He literally is like, oh yes, you are my soul. Yeah. You dominate me. I think definitely not going to hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure they used it in court to prove that Oscar Wilde was gay.
I feel like they may have.
I think it was proof. And I mean, he sort of screwed himself over. Art is what the person that wrote it is. So he sort of screwed himself over with that one, but...
Yeah, jury were not down for death.
No.
You weren't in the mood for Death of the Author that day.
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so I'm going to start probably with I've come prepared. Well, okay. I'm saying prepared. I'm literally I have house. All of my shelves behind me, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But my first one has to be. I'm going to show it to the cameras. I feel like I'm doing a booktube video now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my first one is Death of a Naturalist by Seamus Heaney. You know how I feel about Seamus Heaney?
This is a Seamus Heaney shrine.
I do have a Seamus Heaney shrine, and I think my love for him has just come out of... I've spent so much time with his poems throughout my entire life. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I wasn't born, I was storm on the
born
island.
with a Seamus Heaney book in your hand.
But for a very long time, I've been in love with his words. His poems have followed me through life, and I think through so many different experiences, positive and negative, all of which are part of, growth, character development, living. There's been a poem of his that has, you have a song that soundtracks. I feel like the poem is, I'd say in a kind of musical way, is soundtracked.
Yeah.
Moments in my life, and Death of a Naturalist is his first collection, came out in '66, I think. It's the first one of his that I read as well, and it's heavily pastoral, heavily nostalgic, and it's just the most perfect, beautiful, nature-soaked collection about childhood in rural Ireland, and the way, I think particularly with, Digging is the first poem in this collection, and it's probably his most famous poem by a mile. I feel like everybody knows a line from Digging, especially between my finger and thumb, the squat pen rests, I'll dig with it. And I think the thing that first ever struck me is he's basically witnessing his father, his dad, digging in the garden or in a field, and didn't have too much ability for physical labour. He wasn't, in the terms of the time, a man's man. He wasn't a proper man, but he did have the skill, the love, the talent for poetry and for writing, and the way he used his father's act of digging as a kind of metonym, I suppose, for his own writing. He says, I will dig with my pen. I will perform this labour that you perform with my pen. And I think that has just stuck with me forever. It's usually Death of a Naturalist, but I always have a copy of Heaney pretty much on me anytime. If I have a bag, there's a volume of Heaney in there somewhere. He just carried me through life. So essential.
I think Heaney is your Dorian Gray.
Yeah.
I knew Heaney was going to be on this list for you. But
sure, he had to be.
I think you touched on so many good things there. I think one thing is, the best thing about poetry is just it invites so many interpretations.
For sure.
And I think that's exactly why it can be a companion in your life so much easier than anything else. But I also think that I absolutely adore listening to you talk about Heaney. Because my relationship with poetry is nowhere near as deep as yours, and it's very new. But I absolutely adore listening to you talk about Heaney.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I love him, and he's an inescapable
force in your life.
That's exactly the words I was going to say.
Wow.
And and also anything I write is just, there's a borrowed line or there's a reference to him somewhere, and that's not even deliberate at this point. I feel like the lines from his poems are so ingrained in me that it's inevitable that's going to happen. So
Seamus Heaney.
Good old Seamus.
Seamus Heaney. My second book is The Little Prince. And I'm not going to try and pronounce the writer's name because it's French and I'm not French. No, genuinely, I can't wait to read this book to my kids.
Fair.
But just as an adult, I think even as an adult, this book has just come to mean so much to me. Because it's just so... it's about growing up and letting yourself still be imaginative. And I just think the opening of it is absolutely outlandish and I absolutely adore it. And I really want to get a tattoo of that boa constrictor drawing, no matter how ugly it is. And I think the most famous part of the book is the conversation with the fox, obviously. Have you read it?
I have not read The Little Prince.
He's not read it.
I would love to, though.
There's a great movie of it, actually, that is on Netflix. I think it was made by Netflix. It's actually a really good movie of it. I quite like it. I do sob every single time. But the scene with the fox is about taming, and how things only mean things to you if you were tame them. And taming is obviously friendship. So the little prince has a rose. And he says to anyone else, that rose looks like any other rose, but to me, it's special. I just think that's so lovely. And that's exactly what these books are, really.
For sure.
These books are our roses.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that. Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
Especially because, I mean, you're saying, like, you know, it's way less cool because it's a children's book, but I think very recently as well, especially the people that I've been talking to, especially, like, ones who are children's booksellers, etc., they've really, and I've got a newfound appreciation for both, like, middle grade 9 to 12, but just children's literature, for picture books as well.
Yeah.
I think they just... I was listening to Catherine Rundle's... Actually, it's quite conveniently on the desk here. Catherine Rundle's got an amazing essay called Why You Should Read Children's Books Even Though You Are So Old and Wise.
Lovely.
She's obviously a children's author. She's also an adult non-fiction author.
Amazing.
She's incredibly clever, so intelligent. And I was watching an interview with her before I'd read this essay. And to paraphrase massively, and to say it way less... in a way less articulate way, there's such significant responsibility to people who write children's literature, because that is their first encounter with something, I can't think of the word, but a literature that is meant to teach.
Yeah.
And it begins with D, but I can't think of what the word is. It'll come to me at some random point, but as much as literature is so fun, and it's meant to be fun for adults and for children, I think also children's literature is there to subtly, if it's done well enough, subtly teach things. And we deserve, the kids' books deserve all of the love and attention and heart and craft that an adult book does, if not more.
Absolutely.
Because that is, you know, that's, kids are built by what they read.
Yeah.
So I think reading them as an adult, you kind of more easily and explicitly see the messages, and you can still learn so much from them, I think.
Yeah, I think the beauty of The Little Prince is it pretends to be a children's book, but I think that comes back to something that we were discussing yesterday, which I actually posed to you because of a seminar that I had, which is books, do they have a responsibility? Do they have to touch on social issues or political issues? And I think I said denied that they have a responsibility because there's, like you say, they're our introduction to morals a lot of the time, and they have a responsibility to explore those morals and show us the right and the wrong, and that is why so many books, so many fairy tales are good versus evil, especially for children, because it you know, even if it's putting things into black and white, it's introducing morality for them. I
kind of believe that any good writer, it's inevitable that you're going to teach something even subconsciously.
Absolutely. And
again, I was saying to you, part of the same conversation when we were walking in town, is that a lot of people have said to me, like, in the past maybe 6 months, whether it be in general conversations or in, like, seminars, they've said that literature kind of has a choice to be political.
Yes.
And I think perhaps the term political is muddled a little bit, in the sense that all literature is inevitably, unavoidably political.
Yep.
You can't say, I'm going to write something that's completely unpolitical, because subconsciously it will be.
Yep.
And I think that's the same for kids' books, it's the same for adult books.
Yeah.
And that's what makes them so interesting, such a amazing topic of subjective discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do remember having that conversation now.
The Little Prince.
The Little Prince! The Little
Lovely.
Prince. Go read it. Do you recommend?
Okay, the next one I'm going to jump for. I'm just going to get this done now.
Go on.
Before we start maybe, like, thinking we need to wrap up, and then I won't...
No, don't be silly. We'll just...
I actually won't stop talking ever about this book.
As long as we need to.
And if you continue to listen, you'll probably hear me mention this man at least twice per minute.
Oh, yes.
Max Porter.
Yeah.
Lanny. Max Porter, to keep it brief, is...
Love of your life.
Essentially my writing god.
Yeah.
He is my favourite... I'm not one for favourites of all time, but I just know that he is my absolute favourite of all time. He has gave me so much pleasure and taught me so much, and also completely, with every book, altered my perception of what a novel is, what a poem is, and just played with form in a way that is infinitely fascinating. And I think Lanny, for me, is the most specific prime example of that. I love, obviously, all of his books to pieces, but I think I just had such a specific experience reading Lanny, which, in short, speaking plainly and unmetaphorically, is about a child called Lanny in an English countryside village who is a bit of an outsider, and he one day goes missing. And it is about that absence and the village life, the village's reaction to that absence. And it also has a character who is potentially real, potentially not real. It's kind of up to you to decide, called Dead Papa Toothwort, who is this kind of shape-shifting, folkloric, I can't even say creature, because I've heard from some interpretation he doesn't necessarily have a concrete physical manifestation, but he is a character nonetheless that can exist in any different form.
He's an entity.
He's an entity. He is the air. He is the kissing gate.
Yeah.
He's the tree. He's a tree, and he also has a voice throughout this, and he lives by consuming and hearing the voices of the village. And I'll try and show this to the camera if you're watching, but he has these incredible passages where he will play with the typeset, and you get these village voices interweaving and overlapping. I'll try and zoom in. And I know from literally listening to every interview possible on the wide web that he spent an incredibly long time on constructing these kind of sections, I suppose. I'm trying to keep this as brief as possible, but...
No, don't. God, no.
Yeah. Art in nature, metaphorical. Technically, this is a Brexit novel in the kind of quietest, depending on how you read it, quietest, most subtle and beautiful way. But because of that, it is so powerful. It's about the power of art in nature and togetherness and community, and looking at Englishness in a really interesting way. And I will never forget my first reading of this book. It is... I can't even put into words how much I adore it. And again, Max Porter is somebody that he snakes his way into everything I think and say, do and write. And yeah, I love this to bits, and I will read it over and over for the rest of my life.
Lovely. Oh, we're back to me, aren't we? Oh my gosh! Another book that you haven't read that I need you to read. A Single Man.
Oh my god, I've been meaning to read A Single Man for years.
A Single Man.
Years.
Yeah, I read this quite recently actually. But it's I think it is actually one of the first books in a very long time that I just can't stop thinking about.
Right.
Like, it's driving me nuts. Because it's one of those books where you sort of like, wow, that has just put into everything I've ever felt in a book. And I didn't realise that other people felt that, and it just made me feel so much less alone for so many reasons. But yeah, it's also got a movie adaptation actually.
I know.
Also with Colin Firth.
Also need to watch.
Are We Sensing a Theme? No, I actually didn't know about the movie. I remember finding it out after I read the book and sort of freaking out. I was like, oh my god, Colin Firth's in a movie. Follows a guy on a single day, on one day, on his lonesome. And I just think a book that can make a single day interesting is a book worth reading. One of those books as well, I think both you and I share this, films and things that don't have much plot. Yeah. But you're just character focused. And spending time with a character and getting to know them is the story. I love it. And I actually wrote the opening line down because I love it. So it begins with waking up, begins with saying am and now. Oh wow. Which is great. It goes on to talk about that for a bit, but then it says, but now isn't simply now. Now is a cold reminder. One whole day later than yesterday. 1 year later than last year. It's not a very happy book. Can't say, but I just think its depiction of depression is just absolutely phenomenal. There's my favourite scene that has absolutely stuck with me, and it's very early on in the book, is he's driving to work and he just goes on autopilot. And I do this all the time and it's really unhealthy. I probably shouldn't, but he goes on autopilot and realising with a shock that the chauffeur figure has broken a record. It's the chauffeur figure steadily becoming more and more of an individual. Is it getting ready to take over much larger areas of George's life?
Yeah.
Wow. Sad. But also real. It's one of those experiences where I've had it, where I'm driving and I'm just completely spaced out. So I'm completely on autopilot. And you don't realise that other people do it, because it's not something you really talk about, or when it happens you sort of move on and you just think, oh, that's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But actually realising how scary that is, especially someone that's really dissociated all the time, I just think that it really encapsulates areas that I either can't express very well, or don't really think about, don't really deep, or just don't really think other people experience.
I genuinely have been meaning to read that for years.
I need to read more of his work, to be honest. I'm sort of letting the side down.
I need to read the Berlin trilogy.
Absolutely I do. Yeah,
sure.
Letting the side down big time.
Next one I'm going to go for is Orlando. Virginia Woolf.
Virginia Woolf had to pop up somewhere.
Honestly, I don't think, and this is probably, no, this is for sure the absolute most recent book on this list, because it was late last year, I think it was.
Yeah?
I don't know, it was this year. It was summer.
Yeah, Single Man was summer for me as well, yeah.
It was summer this year. And I've read a fuck ton of Virginia Woolf's essays.
Yeah.
Love her essays. She's an incredible essayist.
Incredible writer,
and I just knew that I had high hopes for this when I picked it up.
Everyone raves about Orlando, don't they?
Honestly. But I just remember starting it and being enamoured by just the way she puts words onto a page. I can't quite fathom how she does it in such an exquisite way.
Yeah.
Some of the, you can't really see it, it'll be too small, but I'd say at least 50 pages of my copy are folded here. I just underlined passage after passage after passage, and I think that's also what's made this book, and also my copy is like a kind of physical artefact so special, because I love the physical object of the book and the marks you've left upon it. And I remember so significantly and so vividly reading this and underlining it and reading it so slowly, and I really savoured it so much, especially as a poetry writer.
A poet. You are a poet.
There's a lot of imposter syndrome that comes with that word, so I just avoid it at all costs.
That's why I'm trying to remind you, you're a poet. If I'm a writer, you're a poet.
Okay, fine. But this is one giant prose poem.
Yeah.
It's stunning, and even if you're not into the plot, which is highly entertaining, which is not something Virginia Woolf is known for.
No.
This was what she considered her playbook when she was just going to have a bit of fun, essentially. Obviously based on her correspondence and love with Vita Sackville West, or Sackville West.
Yeah.
Sackville West.
Yeah.
If not an incredible piece of art, this is just a jolly good time.
Jolly good time.
It's a jolly good time.
Love a jolly good time.
Yeah.
Speaking of jolly good times, we'll do a mini segment to break it up. What have you been reading lately?
I've been reading for uni, same as you.
Gulliver's Travels.
Way
Oh?
Cheeky siren. Way more horrifying than I expected.
Oh my god, but it's so funny.
It's so funny and it's so good.
I didn't actually think I'd laugh at a book.
No. The last thing I laughed at was The Art of Ingeniously Tormenting.
Yeah. Jonathan Swift does make me giggle though.
Yeah, he's quite the guy.
He's quite the guy. We said this. It's bad to say, but I really quite like Jonathan Swift.
Yeah, as a novelist.
As a novelist. His misogyny is not great, but I love his cynicism. I love his just straight out. Even when he's being misogynist, like the ladies' dressing room, just why would you think to write that?
I don't know.
The sheer audacity that man had thrills me.
Honestly.
It is so funny. And just...
With his luscious locks.
Just, yeah.
The hair is beautiful.
I think as well, a worthy mention was something that we mentioned in the bookshop in the cafe yesterday. Was that poet that you found?
Oh, C.P. Cavafy. Yeah, that's my new current obsession. But
yeah, no.
Poetry that I'm reading at the moment, is Caleb Femi's new collection, The Wickedest.
Amazing.
Which is... I love Caleb Femi so much. He's an incredible photographer, filmmaker, poet. He's amazing.
Multi-talented.
If you have not come across Caleb Femi in any of his forms before, I highly implore you to go do that.
Lovely.
His first collection, Paul, is incredible. It's about black Britishness, police brutality, working class, the working class experience. His new collection, The Wickedest, is essentially... It is a poetry collection. God, the sirens are crazy today, aren't they? So it is a poetry collection, but it does also serve as a singular narrative of a house party in London.
I love that.
Known as The Wickedest, and it's known to be the biggest house party in London and the longest running. And it gives you a timestamp, it gives you the poem, it also features his incredible photography, and it's Fourth Estate have done such a good job with the production of that book. It is such a beautiful book as well. So I'm very much enjoying that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. What about you?
What have I been reading lately?
Bernard Cornwell.
No, I'm loving that.
I know you're.
Don't bash my dad fiction.
No, I'm not bashing it. I'm saying you're in your Bernard Cornwell phase right now.
I've been in a Bernard Cornwell phase for a while.
Fair.
But I just haven't been able to read him because I've been at uni. But no, I watched The Last Kingdom and I just.
Last Kingdom's so fucking good.
Oh, it's just genuinely one of the best TV shows I think I've ever watched in my entire life.
It's fabulous.
I just love everyone, every character in it. I love them. Bernard Cornwell. I'm reading The Winter King. I've been trying to read it for a while, and it's really frustrating because I sit down and I absolutely love it. I'm steaming through it, and then I just put it away for a month because I have to.
Uni reading's
Uni reading is driving me nuts.
2 to go though.
2 to go, and I tell you what, I'm really excited for Tristram Shandy.
So
We've said this.
It's right here, ready to go.
I know. I ordered mine. It's coming today. Hopefully, I'm so excited. Shout out to our 18th century lecturer. What a guy.
Icon.
Absolute icon. Genuinely, when someone teaches with passion, it just trickles into you, doesn't it?
For sure.
I think that's exactly what has happened. But I never really thought about 18th century literature.
And now both of us.
And now I am preparing. Yeah, I might write my dissertation on something in 18th century.
Holy shit! Yeah.
It's the thing that has stuck with me the most. I'm so mad at 18th century society, which is a whole podcast episode that's coming.
Yeah. Prepare yourself.
We got taken to an archive, didn't we?
Oh my god, it was incredible.
Oh, it was so silly. Some of the things that they wrote were just... There was a dictionary on Yorkshire dialect that gave you a preface of... you still probably won't understand it, even if you read this dictionary.
Unless you're from Yorkshire.
Unless you're from Yorkshire.
Yeah.
True.
I just thought, I've never had that archive, seeing a physical manuscript kind of experience.
Really?
No, I've never had that before, and I was so looking forward to it, and it was just... so special.
Oh, it was so special. And we did it together.
We did. Again, I'm just obsessed. I always have been
with me. I'm joking.
With you, but also with the book as a physical, tangible object.
Yeah.
The history of its production and its making, and it's just obviously the literature itself is that's what it's all about. But for me, the physical object of a book and the way it's created, even now in contemporary society. That is just such a huge... I
think you said one of my favourite things you've ever said that day, which was about... we found a book... Oh, don't be silly. We found a book and it was a political book. It was bloody massive.
It was.
And so I think was it a Tory book or was it...
No idea.
The opposite. I think it was a Tory book and a Liberal had owned it.
Yeah. Oh my god.
A Whig. Yeah. And he was writing in the margins, and you saw him progressively get angrier and angrier as the book went on. And you said to the archivist, and I think it's just amazing that I totally thought it, and I just loved the way that you articulated it, and I definitely won't do you justice. And I just loved the archivist's reaction to you. You started talking about the fact that books probably don't hold the value they used to anymore because they're sold in such excess.
Because of their production, yeah.
But books that have writing in like that, personal writing that show you the insight of the actual person that owned it, will they continue to still be?
Yeah. I think that was my question to her.
Yeah.
I was like, because obviously you've got the inscriptions and what somebody added to a book, which further increased its value from that time. But what also holds value when you're looking at books from that period of history and before and probably a bit after as well, quite a while after, was the physical, the production of the book, the printing of it, The printing press then was a new thing, and everything was done manually. You know, you would have to slice the pages open yourself.
Yep.
The size of the book would show your status.
Yep.
And now books are, you know, cheaply and mass produced.
£10 or £1 from a charity shop.
Yeah, I mean, you get beautiful books, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But because they're so easily made and easily accessible, which, well, I should hope they are for a lot of people, and they should be for everybody. But where's the value going to lie?
Yeah.
And I feel like, as the archivist was saying, she said she's not sure.
No.
But one thing that will always hold value is the personal inscription. And that's why I love, you know, reading the books I own fully, unfolding the pages and annotating things.
And I think that was a big debate for a good few years with book talk and stuff.
Oh,
was the I don't know. But like,
that's a whole other podcast.
I definitely felt it for a while. Like I saw my books quite precious, and I was like, oh, it's a bit wrong to write them. Obviously, schools encourage it, which is great.
Yeah.
And I think if through school I started annotating books and such, but I didn't see the personal value until a good few years ago. And I think I started reading more for my own pleasure.
Yeah.
Prioritising what I wanted to read more and not just following the grain. But I think that, I feel more comfortable being personal with my books now.
Sure.
They're an edition of myself.
And on that note,
next book.
What is your next book?
My next book is Jekyll and Hyde. Speaking of school.
I've got a copy if you want to hold it. The Black Classics is a little thin. You'll see it with Black Classics.
I do see it. There it is.
That's my copy from GCSE.
There it is. Oh, wow. Well, that's actually quite fitting because that's why it's on here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so Jekyll and Hyde was the first book that I read for school and enjoyed. That's the key part.
Really?
Because obviously I read like other books. I mean, Animal Farm could have been on this list.
Fucking hell.
Animal Farm was sort of like this, but I feel like something about Jekyll and Hyde has stuck with me so much more, and maybe it's because it's Victorian and I just love Victorian England. Well, I hate Victorian England. I've been traumatised by Victorian England since I was a child, but it's a loving paradox. It's a really horrific time, but just like so fascinated by it, and I just love so much about this book, and I just think the thing for me is I love history. Studied history for my entire life. Did everything I could to study history. Grew up studying history with my parents and such, and I think that Jekyll and Hyde was the first book where I realised history comes into play with books, and historical context is crucial to understanding some books. And I had an absolute nutcase of a teacher teach me it. He was mad. To be fair, my secondary school did have some mad English teachers, but no, he acted it out. He acted the whole book out. It was great, with voices and everything. He used to be a cartoonist, so he drew loads of pictures as well. Cool. He was amazing. I remember learning about Charles Darwin and all the evolution theory for it, and just thinking, wow, that's so cool. Yeah. And all the gentleman stuff. And now I have a really expensive Folio Society copy that I got for free. Actually, my favourite story I have about this book is my A-level English teacher came to me one day. He came running to me in the corridor. He saw me. He said, Eryca, I've got something to tell you. I said, what? He said, I just taught the scene in Jekyll and Hyde where Danvers Crew gets killed. I said, right. He said, and look at my arm. And he just had his whole arm gashed here. And he was like so proud of it, like it was a war wound. I said, how the bloody hell have you done that? He said, because I was reenacting it. I was reenacting the bludgeoning, and I got a bit too excited and banged my shoulder on the desk and cut it open.
I will never forget my English teacher.
I'll never forget any of my English teachers. Yeah,
just one specific one I had. I won't even start rambling, but he was just...
Yeah, me and you have both had the same sort of relationship with one of our English teachers, haven't we?
Incredible, and he never... Like, a day doesn't kind of pass by where I don't think about him, what he would be doing now, thinking now. Something he said to me in the past. And we still, like, email. Yeah. Although, Tom, I've got an email I haven't replied to for a while. Because I get into this thing where, like, I want to reply comprehensively and fully and properly. Yeah, and because of that, I keep putting it off. But, so this is my number... Is this the fifth one?
Fourth.
4. Okay, fourth.
Nick Cave! Nick Cave's out! All of yours are so predictable. I love you.
Yeah, so this is Faith, Hope and Carnage by Nick Cave and recorded and transcribed by Sean O'Hagan. Equally, he's an equally big part of it because he asked the perfect questions and started the perfect conversations. And I think what is important to know about this book, it says on the back of the hardcover, I have a paperback of it somewhere, but this is like my destroyed original hardcover. It's been loved and read by myself many times and also by my family.
Yay!
But anyway, this most notably is not a memoir, it's not a biography, an autobiography, it's a series of conversations that Nick and Sean had over lockdown, or mostly over lockdown, over the phone. And Sean O'Hagan is like the most incredible journalist, and he has such a genuine approach to the questions he asks, and to really prizing the best and the most deep philosophical things out of people. And I think Nick Cave inherently is like that. Nick Cave is another one of them people for me that's probably the only other person at a same level as Max Porter in terms of this kind of godliness, I suppose. I don't even mean that in an ironic or dramatic way. Yeah, they're just kind of people that I've always, ever since I've known about them or their art, I have looked up to them, but also I've looked to them for their view on the world and answers and their perspective on things. And this book, when I read it, is probably the book out of all of these that actually I felt a shift in the way I was living my life after I'd read it.
Wow.
I felt a shift in, I won't go deep into it on here, but I felt a shift in my relationship with my dad, who also read it and feels at least similarly to me with Nick Cave. And I think the conversations that this sparked us to have from the subject matter covered in the book, just really changed me. He has opened my mind as well to spirituality, to new perspectives on religion. Although I'm not a religious person, I see it very differently now because of him. But spirituality, certainly he's opened me up to massively. And also, not on a more surface level, but on a more obvious level, the kind of spirituality and transcendent possibility that music has, and the necessity of music in people's lives, particularly his life and my life, or just more broadly the creation of art being fundamental to our living and how we articulate ourselves in the world. And I think he's the most beautiful, eloquent person I have ever listened to in my life. Yeah, this book it's deep and it's phenomenal. I implore everybody to read this. Really, Nick Cave fan or not, it's
Absolutely.
phenomenal.
I agree. I need to get around to it. To be fair, all of the books on each of our lists are pretty. I think you've not read any of mine. I've not really read any of yours. So.
But we've got such
we're diverse.
We've got a nice Venn diagram interlap.
Yeah.
Interlap?
I think
Overlap.
Yep.
We've got an overlap.
There's an overlap there.
But we've also got brilliantly different tastes.
Yes. I think that's one of the best things coming into this podcast is that we will have pretty similar opinions but very different tastes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, this one's... Oh, actually, we're doing honourable mentions. Honourable mentions before we do our...
We've got one honourable mention each, have we?
Yes. Okay, so my honourable mention is got to be Shakespeare.
Of course.
I mean, anything by Shakespeare, but I'm going to say Othello, because you and I always talk about Othello.
We do.
And Othello was what we studied, and I just think, wow, Shakespeare. Love him. I love him so much. Probably not a great guy, but I love his stuff.
I also think the people that argue Shakespeare's boring.
Oh, gosh.
But I think Othello, of all of his plays, is the most... It's the most perfect to argue against that, to counteract that. Because it is so full of drama and violence, just but also pure beauty and love.
Yes.
And twisted love.
Absolutely. I think if you don't like Shakespeare, at least watch Shakespeare. Live.
Watch Othello.
I mean anything. I watched his... I watched Twelfth Night. Oh my gosh. Genuinely one of the best experiences. I have never laughed at a play in such a way. I was creasing. Shakespeare humour had me creasing. And not even just the penis jokes. I mean, the actual play itself, everything about it was just absolutely phenomenal, and it was a great performance. that I will definitely recommend going to watch a Shakespeare play.
Yeah, for sure.
And read his sonnets. God, read his sonnets.
The sonnets are like...
I love his sonnets.
You can't argue with their beauty.
Love is not time's form.
Exactly, that's sonnet 116.
It is indeed. Well done. And then everyone knows, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate.
Oh shit, blazing. Broad honourable mention.
Broad honourable mention, but I can't go without talking about Shakespeare when I talk about literature, really.
Yeah.
Shakespeare is my god, I think. I have his Bible.
Segue into my honourable mention.
Yeah. Why not?
It's massively different. I mean, I couldn't really pick a Brandon Taylor novel because I love them all to pieces. But I've picked, for the sake of recency bias, I've picked his newest one.
Yeah.
The Late Americans. He writes incredible... Also, I should mention, he's an exceptional essayist. His non-fiction is... If you've got
a good essay.
If you've got a London Review book subscription, or you can get a couple of free articles, read some of Brandon Taylor's. He's got an amazing one that he worked on over a very long period of time on Zola that came out not so long ago. He's phenomenal, but he's also a big reader of classics and classic buildings-roman style narratives, and it comes through so much in his writing, despite them being so different.
Yeah.
Essentially, he's doing a quartet of these. There's one more to come, which I think is set in a gallery.
Oh, exciting.
And I think he's going to be doing different things in the future, but at the moment he's been doing a quartet of Midwestern campus novels, essentially. That's to put it in the kind of the most simple terms. But he just has these incredible character studies. His characterization and character writing is of a quality I have never read in anything else.
Wow.
And when I get into his novels, I'm fully consumed by them. I feel kind of a part of that academic campus community. I'm invested in the politics of these people.
That's magical.
And he just, he's absolutely wonderful, and his kind of writing of the human condition is amazing.
What a solid honourable mention.
That is my honourable mention.
So much more specific than mine. Okay, this one, my final pick, my final actual pick.
Okay.
You will not have heard of this.
Oh, right. Okay.
You will not have even heard me mention this.
Oh.
But it is one of the writers that I actually hold really close to my heart.
Okay.
So it's Haunted by William Hussey, which is actually a horror book.
Right.
It's a young adult horror book that I read. So William Hussey actually came to my school, so he's from Skeg.
Right.
Big up Skegness. My parents know where he lives. It's really creepy. I remember walking the dog one day and he's like, oh, that's their house. They live there. I was like, thanks for that. But 10-year-old me was like, oh my god, I can go knock on his door. I can go tell him I love his book. So I've got every single book of his signed.
Oh my god.
I know. But Haunted, I hold especially to my heart because it was just the book that I loved the most. It was the first of his that I read. And oh my god, when I was a kid, it was just the coolest thing ever. Yeah. And it's such a cliche little YA novel, but when you're a kid, it just means so much. And it was what got me into reading. I carried that book absolutely everywhere. I remember getting in my car and it was in my car every day. And he came to my school and he gave a very long assembly. I remember sitting on that assembly hall floor, looking up at him, thinking, wow, he's so cool. Because he did a collection of books called the Witchfinder series, and it's about witches and stuff. So he did lots and lots of research on witchcraft, and he said he was talking about how important it is to do research to write books. And obviously at the time, I did a lot of reading when I was a kid, but I wrote a lot. Yeah. I had notebooks after notebooks after notebooks of just absolute crap. It's awful. It was the first author I'd ever seen in my entire life, and I actually gave him a piece of writing.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I gave him a piece of writing and I still have it. Because he gave it back to me at the end of the day, came and found me, gave it back to me, and he wrote on it that you have the potential to be a writer, you should keep doing this. Oh, wow. And I was in year 5 at the time, so I think I was I worked out yesterday, I was 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. And I still have that piece of writing, and I'll see if I'll find it when I go home, and I'll send you a picture. But honestly, just what an amazing guy. And I remember as a kid sitting on my bed reading it, getting really scared, and then like someone's neck got snapped, and I was like, wow, this is crazy, guys. And I just completely fell in love with reading. Just really, really...
So it was the snapping of a neck that got you...
Well, no, because it was haunted, but when I was a kid, I only wrote horror stories, which is so different to what I write now.
I used to write a lot of horror, you know.
Horror was just it when you were a kid. Like,
you thought you were so like edgy.
Yeah, I did. I really did. I thought it was just so cool writing a little horror story. Like, no one gets this. No one gets how scary this is right now. I used to read them out, trying to do creepy little readings.
Okay.
And you, darling.
My final pick.
So completely different again.
Mention is again predictable from me.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
It is Ali Smith's Autumn, which is the first book in her seasonal quartet, which now has 5 books because it has a companion piece.
Amazing.
Which is literally called Companion Piece, which I think is hilarious. She's such an icon.
Love that you picked Autumn.
I genuinely could have picked any Ali Smith book that I've read, and the only reason I think I picked Autumn was because it was the first one that I read.
It's best season as well.
Best season as well.
Best season of the year.
And Ali Smith has just... Again, the reason why I've added it to my list of books that have made me is because it has changed my approach to writing.
Mm.
Her play and experiment with form, her wordplay, her unconventional plot devices, character choices, metaphors. Her books are so kind of absurd.
Right.
I'd say they're absurdist, they're uncanny, and I just have fell in love with her for that. I've also fell in love with kind of her approach to... It's a very privileged approach, I think, to be able to have, and I wish I could also be able to have this approach and kind of grow a platform without having to be on social media and voice things over the internet, but she's very secluded. She doesn't do many... Recently she's actually done a few for her new novel Glyph, which is incredible, by the way. Incredible. But yeah, she's very secluded. She doesn't do many interviews. She lets the books speak for themselves. She doesn't show herself in public very often. She is to herself, well, from what I've seen, I might be wrong, but to herself she is just a normal person who writes things, and she wants to remain that way.
Lovely.
So I think her approach of just letting the work speak for itself, and her books just encapsulate humanity, both in the objective humanity and humanity as
a moral,
as a feeling, philosophy.
Should we end it here?
Yeah, lovely stuff.
Lovely stuff. We did a first podcast episode.
So now you know a little bit about our taste.
Yes.
What we enjoy, what's made us.
Yeah, I think it's good insight into the soul, no?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And now we are ready to move forth and
edit this.
And more external...
Oh yeah, in terms of topics, absolutely. Yeah, see you on the next one.
Have a good week and life.
Yeah, good week, good life. We'll come back with more of what we're reading next week. New topic.
Yeah.
All that jazz. I've already forgotten what the podcast is called.
See you later.
See you later.